Armanov has just released an entire suite of upgrades and enhancements for the Frankford Arsenal X-10 press. And in this video, we're going to take an in-depth look at each and every one of them. Hey guys, Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. In case you don't know, the Frankford Arsenal X-10 packs a lot of bang for the buck. I was online looking at this press today, and from some retailers, you'll see it for as little as $800. It comes with 10 stations and is packed with innovative features. Now, every progressive reloading press can be enhanced and made to run better, more different options. And we're going to see with this whole suite of accessories and enhancements from Armanov how that's possible with the X10. So how I'll start things here is I'm going to walk through each of the upgrades individually, starting with the bearing shell plate clamp. The clamp that comes with the X10 is actually pretty nice, but there's a couple things that Armanov did to take it to the next level. The clamp itself is CNC machined from a billet of aluminum, and it offers a more stable design. It's got more contact surface area, and we've got these IGUS bearings, which are a special material with high lubricity, and there's 3 different shim type bearings here that are included with the kit so that you can set the pressure accordingly. And so that's going to stabilize the shell plate, and it's also going to allow it to glide smoothly. Then we have the shim kit for under the shell plate. This allows us to set the height precisely. And again, Kyle found in the last video loading 6mm Creedmoor on the X10 that allowed the plunger height to be aligned perfectly with the shell plate, so that especially with rifle cases, those longer, taller cases would line up perfectly and case feed would be enhanced accordingly. Speaking of case feed, Armanov also has these case feed plungers. These are made from more durable aluminum as opposed to the plastic factory units. They've got optimized geometry, and you'll also note on here there are some cartridge designations that are engraved right onto the surface, which makes them easier to identify. Okay, and then we have the priming station spring. This little guy right here is going to perform a very important function, and that is to allow us to remove cases from the priming station. I'll give you a scenario. You're going forward on the press handle and you feel that chunk, right? Well, was that a smooth prime, or was it just a tight prime, or was there an actual issue? If you can take the case out, inspect it, put it right back in, that's great. By default with the X10, you would have to manually index to the next station. If all your stations are full, obviously that's a bit of a problem. It can also get jammed up. So it replaces the static guide plate that is right over here, the gray plate, and that's going to allow us to have a Dillon-like ability to remove the case from the priming station. So I'm excited to try that out. Then we have the combo die lock ring and tool head wrench. So we've got 1 inch on one side for Dillon style lock rings or other lock rings that are 1 inch, and then we have 24mm on the other side for newer X10 presses for the tool head bolt. Ours happens to be an OG original version. It's 21mm, so we're not going to be able to demo that, but we can certainly use the other end. And if you have any of the newer models with the 24mm tool head bolt, then that's going to work great. Continuing with some of the case feed, we have the case feed mirror for the collator bowl. This is going to sit in place, allow us to see what's happening in there, and I've noticed that you can actually articulate the mirror itself so that it can be aimed in a direction where you can see things. If we want to shut case feed off, which I typically do, if I'm testing the press, if I'm setting up a single die station, or if I'm running things down to stop periodically, this case feed stop is going to allow us to do that. It's also got a magnetic mount so that we can store it on the press easily. For the powder measure, we have some enhanced O-rings that are going to help the micrometer adjustment maintain its position. These are just going to add a little bit more friction so that we have to rotate it just a little bit harder, because it is easy to bump the micrometer and have that vary just a little bit. This will help prevent that problem. And then what if we want to use a Dillon powder measure on our X10? We can, and we can use the Dillon fail-safe return rod with this bracket. So this is called the Dillon powder measure adapter for the Frankford Arsenal X-10, and I think we will do that last after we demo these O-rings in the factory X-10 powder measure. So in this video, we're going to continue loading 6mm Creedmoor, but I wanted to give you a preview of the Gen 2 bullet feeder from Armanov. So you might have seen our first video. This looks a little bit different. You can tell right away by the translucent clear portion of the housing here. We've got an enhanced sensor for the bullets in the drop tube and a bunch of other enhancements. One of the things specifically that I wanted to note was there is a standalone expander die from Armanov that has optimized geometry for the flare so that bullets are retained and they don't topple off as the press is indexing. It's separate because when you have a 10-station press, you definitely have a station and you don't have to combine it with the powder measure. If you want to buy their die standalone, you can also do that. It's called the Flex die. So if you want to know more about the Armanov Gen 2 bullet feed system, you're going to want to wait and check out our full video when that gets published. I'm going to get started here installing the rest of these upgrades and we'll load some more 6mm Creedmoor. So the first few upgrades Kyle Shields on our team already completed in the last X10 video loading 6 Creed, and that is the bearing shell plate clamp, the shims to adjust the height of the shell plate and to align that to the plunger height so that case feed works smoothly, and the plunger itself. So to get the shims in place, you're going to basically mimic the process that you'd go through to change shell plates. So your priming gear has to come off, so that means the priming assembly goes off the side there. You're going to take off the tool head. You're going to take off the top bracket here with the plunger for the case feed. Now you can move it out of the way, but it can be easier to just remove that. Remove the shell plate and then insert the number of shims that either you've calculated in terms of the height difference between the old plunger setup and what you want for them to align, or if you want to just try different shims subsequently to see what's going to give you the right height if you don't have the ability to measure it. That would basically be the process. The plunger itself, this is a part of caliber changeover. There's a couple screws on the top that hold it in place, and so there's a little window here that you can loosen those through. That's going to swap, remove, and install basically just like the factory plastic ones that you get with the press and the kits. So when you put the bearing shell plate clamp back in place, you're going to use one of multiple blue bearing shims, and that's the IGUS material. And those will sandwich down. And what you want is to just make sure that you have the appropriate amount of friction and the appropriate amount of support on that shell plate so it's not going to move, but it will index freely. Okay, the next set of upgrades that I worked on first was the priming station spring. This is where we're going to take our standoff plate, remove it. There's just 2 screws. And then the screw closest to me on this side of the press goes back in through this priming station spring, holds it in place, and you're going to want to just make sure that that's rotated properly so that it has sufficient pressure on the edge of the shell casing and that you can still get the casing in and out. Super easy upgrade, should only take you a couple minutes. Then we have the micrometer bushing upgrade for the powder measure itself. And this is an O-ring. You're going to take 2 set screws off the body of the rotating micrometer dial, and that will allow you to pull it off the end of the stem. Then you take, I used a pick, you could also use a small flat blade screwdriver and pry out the factory O-ring and then replace it with the thicker one. So it's actually quite a bit of a difference. This is the factory one here, and this is the upgraded O-ring there, and it does give you a lot more friction. It's actually pretty stiff when you turn it, which is what you want if you want to preserve your setting with maximum confidence. So let's install the case feed mirror. This comes in 2 parts. This is just going to slide together. We've got 1 screw that's going to hold the mirror onto the mount. Go ahead and get that screw tightened down. Okay, we'll open the door and set it in place. Nice. From this position, I can see about 3/4 of the case feed plate, and that means I'm going to see the cases as they're tumbling around. So the Dillon powder measure adapter for the X-10 is really simple. It's this return rod bracket that's going to interface with our safety return rod, a washer, and a screw. And so for Dillon parts, what we're going to need is that safety return rod, the actual powder measure itself with the appropriate bar. There's a shorter bar for pistol and there's a taller bar for rifle. We've got the rifle set up here. We're going to need a powder die, which screws down into the press, and the powder measure will slip over, and then we need the appropriate funnel. For a pistol application, this would potentially include the expander if we want to run those together. We don't have to here. For the rifle, it's basically a funnel and an activator for the case activated linkage system. Okay, so that's what it is. I'm now going to take off the X-10 powder measure, install the return bracket, and then install the Dillon powder measure components, and we'll put it to use. So the installation of the Dillon powder measure conversion kit is simple. You're gonna take your X-10 powder measure off, which involves unscrewing the return rod and the side arms on the powder actuation linkage, removing the powder measure, emptying it into your powder canister, and then there's a double nut arrangement on the return rod that you have to take off so that you can withdraw that through the top. Then there is a tapped hole on the X-10 press over here on the priming system top block. The bracket is going to screw into that with the screw and washer. Insert the powder die down into the tool head, screw it down into the approximate position, drop in your powder funnel, drop the top of the powder measure on, tighten the two screws, allowing it to revolve so that you can set the height. We've got it just right here so that when we lower the head, you can see the powder measure move back all the way to its extreme rearward position. And then as we cycle the press forward, it's going to use this return rod to fully extend the powder bar in the retracted position. So next steps for me, I'm going to fill the powder measure, use this screw right here to adjust my powder charge when we go to load, and we'll be good to go. Alrighty, we've got the press set up. We removed the factory bullet feed system in preparation for our next video featuring the X-10, which will be the Armanov bullet feed Gen 2 for the X-10. So I put a Matchmaster die in its place. We've been running the case feed shutoff, the Armanov one here. And so that's cool. We can do whatever we want with our dies. And then when we want to start feeding cases, we just take it off. That's this guy right here. It's got a magnet on it here. I think you can see it right there. So it'll just basically stick to the side of the press. Okay, so let's go ahead and run up the stations. Station number 1 is case feed insertion. Station number 2, which we're now indexed to with our first case. This is the decapper. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. This is actually new brass, so that's not gonna do anything. Station number 3 is empty. Station number 4 has a dynamic hold down over the swaging station. Station number 5 is another dynamic hold down die over the priming station. Now we've got the priming station retainer clip where we can remove the case if we want to. I'll just demo that real quick. Very easy to do that. I'll just rock that back into place. That's a nice enhancement. Okay, so we'll go ahead and prime the case there. Then we've moved the powder measure from the factory setup that we had in station number 7 to the Dillon powder measure in station number 6. We've got that return bracket right here for the safety return rod. So now station number 7 is free. Station number 8, we've got an RCBS simple powder check die. You can see the little indicator come up here flush to the O-ring that we set for that. And then in station number 9, we've got a Matchmaster bullet cedar die. This is the same load that we used in the last video. And then station number 10, we have one of these Dillon powder dies that's being used just as a hold down so that the entire shell plate is free from any rocking, right? So that is the die station utilization. You can see we've got a lot of room here for other things that we could put in place. Okay, so now with all of the stations run up, we're into our progressive loading mode. So each time I'm going to drop a bullet in the bullet seating die, and we'll go ahead and cycle the handle. The other thing I'm doing, drop, and then watch the powder check, right? This is a rhythm that we're going to have to be really religious about. Well, this loading setup is running real smooth, and I'll have to say this is definitely a great way to load 6 Creed. Well, that was fun. It's been really cool to see all of the innovations that Armanov has come up with for the X-10. The X-10 is a great press, and some of these additions can help it be even better. What I'd like to know is, what did you think about the Armanov upgrades and accessories for the X-10? Did you have additional questions? Was one of these something that stood out to you? Drop a comment and we'll join you down there in the comments section. We've got a lot more great Armanov content coming up, and we've also got related Dillon content coming up. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications. Thank you very much for watching. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching Ultimate Reloader on TV and want to take advantage of free resources, exclusives, and hot deals, just hold your camera phone up to the QR code, tap on the link, fill out the information, boom, you're getting Ultimate Reloader emails. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.